Pompa joins us. Don't assume. I mean, it's all...
Hi, we're live right now and waiting for Dr. Pompa to join. Had to restart the live there real quick. So thank you everybody for your patience. Yeah, as we're waiting here for Dr. Dan Pompa to come on. A little bit about what we're going to talk about today. We only have about 15 minutes with Dr. Pompa, and we're going to get into infrared therapy, light therapy, sauna therapy, maybe even a little bit about cold plunge and hormetic stress in general. We're kind of diving a little bit deeper into some of the reels that Dr. Pompa has been. Oh, here's Dr. Pompa right now. So here, let me. You're invited. Here he is.
All right.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
Good.
Wow. I'm so grateful to have you on here. It's been a few years since I've talked to you in person. I know last time we talked, I think I was I did a talk for some of the doctors that you consult.
Yeah. No, exactly. They love it. Most of my doctors that I train, they have your stuff and love it.
Oh, wonderful.
Of course, I do as well. So
yeah. Well, thank you, Dan. I really appreciate that. So I know we have a limited amount of time today. We only got about 15 minutes. I thought that this would be a cool opportunity to kind of dive a little bit deeper into some of these sort of like gotcha videos that you've been making that I think are great. They're bringing a lot of attention to like light therapy, to sauna. Mm-hmm. I just saw one actually on cold plunge you did with Ben Azadi.
Yeah.
What a great guy. I had the pleasure of meeting him actually at Dr. Lawrence's event last December. He's such an incredible guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, like let's talk a little bit about this, and because actually we've had a lot of people in our audience who have brought up your videos.
Yeah, well, here's one of the things that I got just yesterday.
Yeah.
Wait, I saw your video. Should I not use my red light? And I'm like, oh my gosh. I literally, not on this one because I already did, but like, last week, I was like, what did I say? I had to go back and watch my own video because I'm like, did I not make that clear? I made it clear. I think people just like take out chunks of things and they get distracted. They don't watch the whole thing. There's a study going around, and the study is basically saying that red light, the study showed that near infrared raises something called ROS, reactive oxygen species, and that's driving skin cancer, cataracts, etc. Right? So my point is well, wait a minute. Let's understand what's going on here. First of all, yes, it produces ROS, and there's a reason it does, but that's how it works. Now, that said, if you do too much of anything, it can be not good. So my point is red light, just like cold baths. Let me back up. Just like exercise. Everyone here knows the benefit. Everyone knows the benefits of exercise. But if you exercise too much, it becomes negative. And I heard you mention the word before I got on. That is the principle, the premise of hormesis. Meaning if we stress a biological system, meaning us, we get better, stronger, faster, healthier here's the big part, if we adapt. So anything that works by applying a stress, and they pointed it out in the study, then you must adapt. And if you adapt, it's a big positive. So we've all experienced the positives of red light. So how could this be, right? So what they're not showing you in the study is the fact that, the people, the lengths, the times, yes, all they proved was that people don't adapt to too much ROS. We already know that. That's, so I could say the same for HBOTs. HBOTs work not by pressuring oxygen into the tissue. There is some benefit to that, don't get me wrong, but most of the benefits are because it produces ROS, reactive oxygen species, and it acts as a signaling molecule in the body to adapt. It has all of these things that happen in the body, just like red light.
Yeah, there's also, I'd call out another article by Dr. Hamlin called Friend or Foe, which is the best response to like some of these research going around about how red light might be bad for you. It's all about, it's only a faux if it's way too much. In those studies, they're using like way too much power in lasers and also in LED products, but just way too much power, way too long.
Exactly.
And it's just like sitting in the sauna for 2 hours. You know, it's too much of a good thing becomes a bad thing. So,
well, and here's the question I get. So, and I want everyone listening to really understand the principle, because if you understand the principle, it will change your life, because you'll start applying it to everything. By the way, even diet and how to fix your gut. We'll get to that. But look, the question I get is, well, then how much,
right,
Dr. Pompa? How much do you do?
Right.
Because they want to do
much?
what I do. And I'm like, no, that's the absolute wrong approach, because everyone's, tolerance to adapt is different. So we have to get better at listening to our bodies. We have to get better at starting small and working our way up. And we call that raising the hormetic ceiling. So let me just give you an example there. Meaning, if you haven't worked out in a long time, you wouldn't go to the gym and do Ben Greenfield's workout, right? Or a Navy SEAL guy's workout, right? No, of course not. You would not do that. What would you do? You would start small. If you did do that, it would be a big negative. You would actually do more harm than good. Every trainer would tell you that, and you would know that the next day. What do? You start off slow, and if you have a good trainer, you start off slow and you work up the intensity. Oh, and by the way, if you start off slow and stay slow, then you get results in the beginning, but then it plateaus, and then you know what studies show? It actually starts diminishing. So wait a minute, Pompa, you're saying that it's better that I would sit on the couch than go and do something? Well, according to studies, it potentially is, because your results actually start to diminish. So what do? Your results plateau, and you hire a trainer, and the trainer goes, oh, and he starts bringing new things in, and then your results start going up. See, because new exercises, elevated intensity, high intensity days, low intensity days, high rep days, low rep days, all of a sudden the body's trying to adapt. But to adapt to the exercise, the stress of exercise is how you get stronger, faster, everything. The benefits don't occur in the gym. The benefits occur in the adaptation to the exercise. When you exercise, you have a rise in growth hormone, a rise in testosterone, anabolic hormones. Your cells become more sensitive to the hormones, all of those wonderful things. If you don't adapt, if you go too hard and you don't adapt to the exercise, then all of it diminishes the other way. So cold plunges. You know why cold plunges work? Your body literally thinks it's going to die. That's how great the stress is. So you know what it does? The adaptation is, it raises norepinephrine, which raises growth hormone. You have this massive hormone optimization, just like exercise. And if you adapt, you have a de-inflammation happen and all these positive benefits. But let's say you stay in too long. You might actually have adrenaline. You will feel better afterwards because you have adrenaline and all is well, until later later in that afternoon or the next day, and you're like, oh, I'm tired. I just need to go to bed. You don't think that it was the cold plunge, but it was. You did too much. Now let's say, well, the other day I did 3 minutes and I seemed to do fine, but maybe that day you didn't do as much physical stress, or maybe you had too much emotional stress that day, and that sent your stress bucket overflowing and you didn't adapt to that. So that's the principle of hormesis. You stress, you have to adapt, and no different than with red light.
And I love how you're giving, like, it's very pragmatic. It's not look at a chart and see how long you need to do it based on what this other guy's doing. It's listen to your body, listen to yourself, and you'll know based on how you feel afterward, have I had enough, have I had too much? And with all these things, like slow and steady wins the race. I mean, I've always felt that way. That's kind of the way I've designed our products, so that, there's multiple switches. You can turn multiple, 1 or 4 lamps on, and you can keep the curtain open if you need to, but you can totally start out with a couple bulbs and doing 5 minutes. And you do that once and you're like, wow, I didn't sweat that much. So now stay in 10 minutes. But then, there's a lot of people in the beginning, they're like, oh, everybody's doing 20, 30, 40 minutes of sauna. I'm going to do that too. And they go in and it's too much and they have a big detox reaction. And so this idea of not being left-brained about it, being really like in tune with your body and knowing whether it's light therapy or sauna or cold plunge, any of these things are all hormetic stress. They all are very individual what our body needs. And if we just pay attention to it, we'll know how much do I need.
We could make it a little more scientific, you could get an Aura ring or a device that shows heart rate variability. And you watch your heart rate variability for 2 days. And if you see a decline after you did a cold bath, or let's say you bumped it up to, a whole 45 minutes to the sauna or an hour, and you see a worsening heart rate variability, guess what? You went too much. Your body didn't adapt, and you didn't get a positive out of the sauna. Look, a lot of people think that when they don't feel well after a sauna, it was a detox reactions. Most often it's not. They just didn't adapt to the hot. Remember, hot is very beneficial if you adapt. If you don't adapt, it's not good at all. Look, when I was sick, I couldn't even take hot showers. I had to take very lukewarm showers because I learned it would wipe me out. I'd feel great in the shower, and then about an hour later, I was just wiped out. And when I was sick, when I would go out on cold days, I had to cover my head because I would get a headache from cold. I couldn't handle cold. So we have these, challenged people, thyroid problems, adrenal problems, and they're doing too much sauna, not adapting. Again, work your way out. And they're doing too many cold baths, or too much, or too high and, too cold. Remember, duration, how long you do something, increases intensity. The temperature increases, intensity. So standing in front of a red light, being in a sauna, think about those things, right? Distance, temperature, all of it matters, but you have to figure out what's working for you. And as we just pointed out, the best way is just, how do I feel later that day? So your red lights, they're not bad for you. Just make sure you adapt. And then the ROS, for people, I said that word very quickly, but reactive oxygen species, if you did a Google search, it's bad. Reactive oxygen species cause oxidative stress. They cause inflammation in your body. And that is all true until you learn a little bit deeper. Reactive oxygen species, when you make energy in your mitochondria, are produced, but they act as signaling molecules, and it signals your body to produce more glutathione. And that's wonderful because that downregulates inflammation and gets rid of toxins. ROS gets your body to upregulate many different hormone processes in the body that are beneficial, even growth hormone. But again, if you don't have the antioxidant stores, or you're stressed and your body's using all these methylation groups to adapt to the stress that you're under, then guess what? You produce a little bit of ROS, you don't adapt. It's a negative. And yes, it can cause cancer. Yes, it can lead to bad chain reactions, inflammation, all of it, but again, it's not about, it's about adapting to the stress, whether it be exercise, cold baths, hot, doesn't matter.
Right. So it's the context in which we get the ROS and how much we're really getting. We want to get what our ancestors got, which is a balanced amount of environmental stress that induced positive physiological responses in the body. They keep us tempered. They keep us strong and healthy so we don't get weak or atrophy.
And remember,
but we don't want too much that'll just be too much. It'll wear us out.
One of the things I love about your bulbs is they're far less stressful in a good way, meaning when you bring a full spectrum, you are imitating better what the sun gives. The sun is far less stressful. Now, that doesn't mean people who are just powering it at a certain frequency with a red light is a negative. You just have to understand that because it's out of balance in nature, it's more of a biohack, and you have to be a little more careful, right? So the more balanced the bulb, full spectrum, I would argue that it's less of a chance of going overboard and still getting the benefits, because you have less of a chance by laying in the sun, that you're going to get too much red light. There's a spectrum there with your bulb. So I would argue that some red light with too much near infrared and not enough of other wavelengths are going to be far greater risk of going over that line of hormesis. So I've always applauded.
Thank you. Yeah, well, that's nature's wisdom. Nature still knows best, and the more we mimic the way it is in nature, it seems like the more effective, the more safe it is, and the more we get really far away from that, the more we get into situations where things are maybe we're biohacking too much, a concept, and getting too restricted with it, where the holistic synergy of how we got into nature still seems to be the best thing. Vitamin C, the powder versus the orange, and so
there's a
many
balance.
other things.
Yeah, well, know, we could say that. Like I'm not a fan of fish oil, frankly, because but I'm a fan of fish oil and fish.
Yeah.
When you take fish oil out of the
Yeah.
context of a fish, it literally has to rob and steal antioxidants, because it actually creates an inflammatory process, the opposite of what people think. That's another subject. But when we're dealing with this principle of hormesis, it literally applies to everything. And I brought up the sun. So you go and lay in the sun, and we know all the benefits of that. We're raising vitamin D. You help form something called cholesterol sulfate, which is incredibly important for our hormones and our balancing our hormones. All these amazing things happen. But we know this. I'm just relating to this because everyone knows if you lay in the sun too much, what happens? Too much UVB and your skin burns, and that's a big negative, right? So I'm just saying this applies to everything. Now, let me bring up one more thing that people are out of line with right now.
Okay.
Fasting has become very, very popular. I've taught fasting since the 1990s. Okay, so I've been into fasting a long time and teaching the benefits. But what I see now is everyone fasting too much. Fasting is stress. It is a great hormetic stress. The body can think it's dying, but remember, that's what makes it work. Right? It goes into this autophagy stage to save your life, and it starts getting rid of bad cells. But now I go to these seminars and I see these gaunt looking people, and I know they're eating one meal a day because it worked in the beginning, and now their body's eating itself.
Now I got to ask you, so how much fasting is
right? Good question. It's different for everybody, and meaning that, look, you can have someone obese. That I had a guy fasted 121 days at my seminar. He came off of 14 different drugs. He lost 200 some pounds, but he was massively obese. Like I would die if I fasted that, right? So, but let's ask the question differently this way. What about daily intermittent fast? Well, how long do? I do 15 hours. I do 18 hours. I do 20 hours. I eat one meal a day. Okay, that depends on your metabolic ability to do that, right? So that means you could be adapting, you might not be. So for example, many people eating one meal a day or doing an 18-hour fast every day could be tapping into their muscle because their mitochondria are damaged because of certain toxins, and they're not burning their fat because your cells can only use two things for energy, sugar or fat. And if you're fasting too much and you don't have the real good ability to burn fat, you're tapping into muscle and making sugar. So the point is that fasting is a stress. Everyone's going to be different. So how do I know how long to fast? One of the tricks that I show people is measure your morning glucose and ketones. If you're adapting to the fast, you should see your glucose trend down and your ketones trend up. And that means your body's doing the right thing. Now that's taking into account, don't exercise, don't eat, right? You're fasting, and coffee could throw it off. But in a pattern, if you see glucose trending down and ketones trending up as a signal you're burning fat, your body's probably adapting. But people would say, but I think I'm adapting because I feel great through the day. I have plenty of energy. But the problem is they're eating muscle and they're not burning fat. They're breaking muscle down into sugar. So my point is that everything we have to look at this hormone or this hormesis principle.
So let's just wrap up with that. So everything in hormesis is, ultimately it's about being in tune with yourself, listening to yourself, and then using some great tech that we have to measure things like ketones and HRV to help give us some outside perspective. But it's going to be different for every person. And someone asked, just to wrap up, how to apply this knowledge without there being fear involved. Well, there's no fear in it. When you listen to yourself and you work through these things, sometimes it's a trial and error, and you have that day where you do too much stress, but you pay attention and you feel it, and you learn from it.
And you know what? I look at it the opposite. Our perspective becomes, oops, I dropped something. Our perspective becomes our reality. So my mind is the opposite. I look at stress not something to fear. I look at stress as a benefit, even emotional stress, right? So because it's our choice to make it actually help us. So stress, I think we all go, oh, stress is bad. What I'm teaching you is no, stress is good, right? Whether it be emotional, physical, chemical, it is good. I sat into the most brilliant scientist's lecture. This was many years ago. And he actually showed in a rat study how mercury starts off in this massive positive effect in the human body. That's right. This is a guy who was poisoned from mercury. Mercury ruined my life. Mercury is one of the most toxic, if not the most toxic, neurotoxic thing on the planet. So I'm like, how is this guy going to show this? And how did these well, what happens is when you put a little bit in, and again, the key is a little bit, it's so stressful. It upregulated all these pathways of glutathione, methylation, all these things. But here's the problem he showed. There's a sharp hormetic curve, meaning it might go up fast, but it'll go down even faster, right? So we can we can see this positive thing happen in the body. But this is how the whole principle of homeopathics was actually born, right? Giving small amounts of what we think is a stressor. And the more toxic, the less you have to, the less you give. So, I mean, it's the same principle. It's hormesis. So again, I'm not telling anyone to take mercury, God forbid, right? Because you probably get the dosing wrong. But the point is something as bad, as toxic as that, even at some level, will drive a positive change in the body until it doesn't, and then that's the problem. So alcohol, there's so many people online, no alcohol, all alcohol is bad. I don't think so, because we look at these countries that live a long time, that drink a little bit of alcohol, and we know that it acts hormetically, meaning that, it can drive a positive reaction in the body to basically combat the alcohol. Now, where's the line? It's different for everybody. Right? So the same principle applies. How about this one? How about lectins and phytates and all these things that everyone's running from? Look, these things were in vegetables for, time of man. And yes, they are plant toxins, but guess what? They apply hormetically. We have found the best way to get someone over nightshades or lectin problems, because who's having a problem with these things? People with massive leaky gut, that this little toxin crosses over and your body forms antibodies. The best way to fix it is to use a little bit and work that hormetic stress up. And then you can tolerate more and more and more. But everyone's running from lectins as if it's a new, toxin put in food. It's not. It's always been there. They're hormetic little stressors, actually. And they work magic for stressing our microbiome and literally adding diversity. Your bacteria in your gut get stronger with those little toxic little stressors like these little lectins. So remember, but again, your tolerance level, because I know what people are saying out there. I can't eat those things. Well, yes, you can to some level, because it's virtually impossible to get rid of them. Find your level, and then you have to just inch it up. Try a little eating more and more as you're doing other things to help your gut. But the point is that we can't run from these stressors. They're hormetic.
Yeah, beautiful. We'll end with that. So it's all about, don't fear the stress, embrace the stress, and know that we can really build up tolerance to anything, but we got to pay attention to our bodies and use some of the tools we have to find the individual needs that we have. And really,
that's right.
It's almost like almost everything is really hormetic stress. It's
absolutely
something that's measurable, and we need the right dose at the right time, and not too much and not too
exactly.
little.
We need stress. It's how we get stronger. It's how we get better, whether it's our gut, our brain, our physical body, our joints. We need stress.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pompa, for taking the time
Got
today.
it, man.
Very illuminating.
You.
You're the best.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Thank you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.